Chapter 5, the rage cycle. In order to be effective at providing the right supports at the right time, DSPs need to notice the signs of a potential behavior eruption. But they also should understand that there is an evidence-based cycle to these eruptions.
There are 3 stages to the rage cycle. There's the rumbling stage, the rage stage, and the recovery stage. It's important for everyone who comes in contact with an individual who experiences these challenges to understand what that cycle looks like.
Each stage of the rage cycle presents different behaviors and requires a different set of responses. And because every individual is different, the length of each stage will vary. Some individuals will progress rapidly from rumbling to rage, while others take longer to escalate from one stage to the next. Let's start with the rumbling stage. At this stage, there are often some internal signals in the body that indicate something different is taking place.
For some people, their arousal level might start to increase, where their heart rate speeds up and their muscles start to shake, or you get really tense, or maybe even an all-over feeling of being hot. And other people, their bodies start to shut down, and you might just become completely detached from the situation.
Sometimes individuals are aware of these internal signals and will connect them to their emotional state. Other times, these same individuals are not.
The initial stage, the rumbling stage, is where you often see small indicators of behaviors that indicates that the individual is becoming upset or becoming overwhelmed.
There is a range of indicators that you should look for. Some are subtle, while some are very obvious. These might include things like fidgeting, swearing, making noises, refusing to cooperate, tensing of muscles, increasing or decreasing voice volume, making verbal threats, or tapping feet.
And it can be a very subtle change. It can be a way that their face looks. It could be changing their facial expressions. They could be looking down. They could be looking away. If they're verbal, they might be mumbling under their breath. There's a number of, they may be getting up and moving. There's a number of ways that you can start to indicate that something's just not quite right.
When you notice these behaviors, it's important to understand the individual and know the right time to intervene.
When he walks in circles, it's a means of calming. If something happens and he gets more agitated or excited, he starts walking faster. And if he walks so fast, then it's a full-blown situation or behavior breaks out. So if you can redirect as you see it happening when he starts walking a little faster, you've sort of avoided the situation or going into the rage cycle.
Recognizing these signs at this stage is important because it's your window of opportunity to interrupt the rage cycle.
I call it your uh-oh meter goes off. Knowing the individual, you notice that slight change in their behavior. And if you can catch it early, when your uh-oh meter goes off, then you can stop that escalation and get it right then.
The best time for intervening is during the rumbling stage. And if you intervene and understand the individual, about 75 to 80% of the time, you can be successful in calming the child down.
You have to really understand what that child needs in those moments. Some children, they need quiet, they need things to be low and slow, and they need someone to feel that they're there and supporting them, but they still have plenty of space. However, other kids, they need connection during that rumbling phase.
It's important to also be aware of your own emotional state and maintain a level of calmness as you use strategies to intervene during the rumbling stage.
So when we notice someone starting to have a hard time, right, whether they're verbalizing that or we can tell by their body language, that's when we can get really in tune with what helps us regulate, what helps us have a state of calm and balance so that we can show up for the person in a safe way.
You'll want to intervene using interventions that will help the individual be distracted from the issue that he or she is having. And also, the strategies need to have a self-calming component.
My go-to is to make them laugh, because once they start to laugh about something, it gets rid of some of that anger and that tension and that awkwardness that they're feeling. And then I try to completely just do something different, redirect the entire thing, and then they don't even remember why they were so upset, what they were upset about. Or sometimes they'll ask for some space, so I give them space.
You'll learn more about the specifics of these strategies in later modules. For now, let's consider what happens when strategies are not implemented or are not effective for an individual. At this point, the individual moves into the rage stage of the cycle and experiences the height of emotional intensity. Some individuals may be more aware than others of engaging in the rage cycle.
All that kind of gets stuck on high. It's like when your car's engine is revving on high and it's not supposed to, and you can't bring it down because something's wrong with your car. That's what it reminds me of. Even though I know that it doesn't need to be, and that the feelings are way too big for the situation. I know that I still can't make the big feelings come down.
During the rage stage, you will typically observe behaviors that are highly emotional and unrestrained. These might include behaviors commonly associated with meltdowns: screaming, biting, hitting, kicking, and destroying property. Others will simply shut down and exhibit what's referred to as internalizing behaviors. Internalizing behaviors are strong negative feelings and actions that individuals direct against themselves.
If you were to work with my nephew, you would definitely need to understand de-escalation and escalation strategies.
Some of them are SIB and will hit themselves. Some will scream and just make loud noises, letting us know that they're upset when we don't necessarily know why.
When the youth becomes frustrated or he needs something that you are not able to let him have at that particular time, he will try to come closer to you, trying to pinch at your shoulder, meaning that he is interested in what he's asking you to do. If you're not able to do that, after the pinching, he's going to scratch you or maybe try to be aggressive.
Sometimes rage can be triggered by a person's perception of the situation, and this may or may not be proportional to what is actually happening, like forgetting math homework.
I'm going to get in trouble because I don't think I have this math homework. And it spirals or it increases so quickly. And he feels really overwhelmed by this feeling because he doesn't have great emotional regulation. And he feels very overwhelmed by this feeling that, oh no, that woman is wanting something from me that I don't have. And he blows up. He flips the desk, he swears at the teacher, he kicks his book bag.
So what can you do to be an effective support for an individual during this phase of the rage cycle?
Generally, what you'll want to do is let the meltdown run its course. You want to make sure that the individual is in an area where he is safe, where he still has his dignity, and stand back, let the meltdown occur.
Don't do any redirection. Don't show a visual support. Don't try and get near the individual to touch them. Sometimes just stepping back.
Communication is very much limited once he gets to that point. There's no rationale behind it, so it's kind of switching strategies, and you can't necessarily talk him down because he's not hearing that rational side.
It is absolutely essential that we are just low and slow, and what that means is we reduce all sensory input. So we dim the lights, we stop talking immediately. We still are a very supportive, non-judgmental force in that child's life.
Remember that you do not want to teach during this stage because the individual is not cognitively with you.
I think one of the hardest things as a parent is to see your son in that middle of that rage cycle. It's you feel kind of helpless. They're helpless, you're helpless. It's really hard not to get emotionally involved.
For adults supporting youth at the peak of the rage cycle, there are some important things to keep in mind. Remember, no talking. This is not the time for directing or instructing youth. That includes adults talking to each other. Safety comes first. Survey the environment for potentially dangerous objects. Stay as calm as possible by using your own calming strategies. And above all, don't take it personally. It's important to understand that the rage cycle doesn't stop here. There is a period of recovery that must follow and can last as long as the previous 2 stages. As with the other 2 stages, the recovery stage will look different for every individual. You may see the individual withdrawing to rest or sleep, denying that the rage behaviors occurred, or apologizing for the behaviors. It's important to recognize that they are vulnerable to another meltdown at this stage.
Many kids need a long time to recover, and a lot of times these children aren't given enough time to recover. So it's really important to give them the space that they need.
That you also aren't necessarily talking to the individual. Because even though the rage may be over with, the individual still may be stressed or anxious. They may be embarrassed. So you want to give them an opportunity to really get to a place where they're calm, they're comfortable. You never want to, in the recovery stage, to necessarily go over what just happened.
Once you see signs that the individual is calm and not likely to re-escalate, carefully begin to support them in returning to their daily routines. This point is different for each individual and sometimes each situation.
So what you will want to do if you're interacting with that individual is, as soon as possible, get that individual back into his or her daily schedule. You'll want to make sure that if you are using specific supports with the individual, that you have those supports out and available during the recovery time.
Try to get them back engaged and doing things that they are good at, things that they like to do, play video games, color. We have a ball in the sensory room that one of them likes to throw after he's upset because he's good at doing it. It makes him feel good and gets him back into that zone of that things are okay and it happened, but we're good.
To believe in fresh starts. After a meltdown, we can collect ourselves, we can come back, and we can still have a great day. It's not the end all. That every kid gets that second chance and that fresh start. It's a new day.
As we work together to meet the needs of multi-system youth in Ohio, the ideas of a fresh start and a new day apply to how each of us needs to look at the challenges we face, as well as the opportunities we have to make a real difference in people's lives. When we begin to look at behavior through a new lens, we will better understand what is really being communicated through that behavior. When we move away from a one-size-fits-all approach and make a fresh start at understanding the needs of individual youth and their families, we can then match them with services and supports to better meet those needs. As state and local agencies find opportunities to work together in new ways, the road to adulthood becomes a little smoother for multi-system youth and their families. With this fresh start, that road opens up with new hope, and we can better recognize the gifts and potential in every young person. We can use this new day, this opportunity we have, to help build a brighter future for everyone.